Hello and welcome back to Down to the Tyre. Today I'm joined by a driver who I first discovered from watching the One Show. She was featured on the show in a short film about her racing career, and I knew I had to get in touch and ask her to be on the podcast. Sophie Kinghorn started karting when she was 5 years old, inspired by her brother and her dad. Now she competes in the BRSCC Vinyl Detail Fiesta ST Challenge Championship with SBR Motorsport. We talked all about the championship, her journey to get to where she is today, and her dreams of competing in the British Touring Car Championship one day. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure to check out her social media as it's all in the description below, as well as giving me a follow at Down to the Tyre. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
So, Sophie, when I first kind of found out about you and your racing career and your journey, it was from a recent segment you did on the One Show. And I was really curious, how did that opportunity sort of come about in the first place?
Well, I got interviewed by the Aberdeen paper, um, and the One Show actually read the paper and they reached out to me wanting to do a little film and see if we'd be able to get it sorted on a race weekend to see a bit behind the scenes and just see what it's like in racing so that people who maybe don't see the behind the scenes can really see how people progress through racing.
That's really cool. What was the experience like kind of filming it and then seeing yourself on BBC One as well? Like, what was that like for you?
It was so surreal. I don't do very well in front of cameras, so it was a bit awkward to begin with. But as the filming progressed, it just kind of became more natural to be speaking.
What do you think it was about your story? Because obviously there's so many, young racers competing in so many different championships. What do you think it was about that article and your story that grabbed their attention and made them, pick you specifically to focus on in that short film?
I feel like it's because I'm in such a an area that you wouldn't really expect someone to be racing in. I'm not from a big city or all these places. I live in a pretty small village, so I feel like that kind of grabbed their attention, but also the fact that I've progressed to a national championship, and I'm also quite young, I'm 18, so that obviously grabs people's attention as well.
Definitely, that's really cool. I was going to ask about kind of how you got into racing based on the fact that, as you said, you're from quite a small village. It's hard for anyone to kind of get into racing, I think. I guess you've got to be near kind of like a go-kart track, or you've got to have sort of family who know about it, who, kind of direct you towards it. So I was curious about coming from, an area where there's not going to be like racers who have maybe come from the same village as you before and things like that. How did you kind of break into karting and racing in the first place?
Well, my dad and brother both used to do karting when I was really young. My dad actually progressed to BMW Compacts, the Scottish Championship for that one. But when my brother gave up karting, my dad pretty much turned around to me when I was 5 years old, and he was like, do you want to give it a go? But a little cheap Bambino. Couldn't race it or anything, just for a bit of fun. Went up to my local track, Grampian Kart Club, and yeah, I haven't been able to stop.
Can you remember how you felt behind the wheel for the first time when you were a very, very young girl?
I was 5 years old. I have no idea. But my dad says that I came in and I was smiling and giggling. So I think that kind of made him realise that, we're getting a little racer here.
Like 5 years old, I know a lot of drivers start relatively young, but five is quite early to start. Do you think that's kind of benefited your career now? And obviously, as you said, you're so young, you're 18 now, and competing in such high of championships. Do you think starting that early is what's enabled you to do that?
100%. The amount of racecraft I've gained over the years has really helped me in all levels of racing, and it gives me an idea. So my dad's always not made me work on cars, but he's always wanted me to be very hands-on. And that's actually where I found my love for mechanicking. So now I'm an apprentice technician for Trust Ford in Aberdeen. So I've always been really interested in like how everything works, and that's also really helped me again through the years. I've always been hands-on, get my hands dirty. That's again helped me with my work life as well as racing.
That's really interesting that you say that because my previous guest, Alicia Barrett, she also is a mechanic alongside the racing that she does as well. What edge do you think that gives you? I imagine it gives you a much broader understanding of the car than a driver who, say, wouldn't be able to be as hands-on as you.
It really helps my feedback. So if maybe my back end's a bit loose, I'd be able to ask them to do specific things that I think would help. Or um like just in general, like if the team needs help in a like pinch, you know, we've been called up to the grid, the car's still not ready, I'm able to jump on and help if need be. Um but also when me and my dad were just like privateers, you know, there was a couple of times where I would have to jump on and help.
That's really cool. And I don't know if you do have your driving license yet or not, but I know with a lot of young drivers, they're often, when they are karting, especially when they're, even when sometimes when they're driving full-size cars, they don't have their driving license yet. So I'm always curious about the experience of driving on the road versus driving on the track. What's that been like since you do have your license, as you said?
It's difficult to adjust. So on actually last weekend at um Alton Park, I drove down, but
Mm.
it's so weird transitioning from going 100 mile an hour into a corner to going 60 mile an hour on a straight. Um, it really it also freaks me out because like I feel so loose because obviously I'm very tied in, and
Mm.
then I've only got my normal seatbelt, so I'm like, oh my god, freaking out. But it, you know, it's I do all my racing on the track. I have to keep it nice and clean on the road.
Speaking of kind of transitions, like, you know, between cars and everything, the transition between karting to racing full-sized cars, I imagine, is quite a big jump. And obviously now you're racing the Fiestas. What was it like going from the karting days into cars? And what was kind of, I guess, like your first experience of switching over?
So when I started racing in cars, I was 16, so I didn't have a driver's license, and it was the gear changes and the like weight transfer of going into a corner
Mm.
that I really struggled with, and sitting on one side. You
Mm.
know, you've got so much space over there. You need to keep an eye on, like,
Mm.
make sure you're not hitting into anybody. And unfortunately, I did have a couple run-ins with one specific person. There was no hard feelings about it. He understood. There was no damage done. It was just trading pain. But like, it's just trying to understand it as quick as you can and trying to find the confidence.
That's so hard, like, because obviously, yeah, you know, with, you know, a single seater car, you're there and it's the same distance on each side and it's, you know, equal and balanced. Whereas I imagine for you, it's like you've got a whole seat, I guess, next to you as well. How easy is it to kind of be aware of what's going on around you on track? Because obviously you have to be, but is it sometimes difficult to kind of know if someone's behind you, difficult to kind of know where exactly where they're at and things like that.
It can be difficult, especially when your mirrors get folded in. You're completely blind. Um, but I've gotten to a point now where I'm just kind of used to keeping like my mirrors and my peripheral vision, you know, always keeping an eye on what's going on around me while also purely focusing on pushing forward.
For anyone who might not have, you know, been following your racing career, are you okay to just kind of talk through the championship that you're doing now this year, and also just a bit of an overview of how the season's going so far? Because I know you mentioned Alton Park last weekend. Are there any kind of other standout moments throughout the season that are most memorable to you that you'd like to speak about?
Yeah. Well, I raced in the Vinyl Detail ST 150 Championship. It's across 7 rounds. Some of the bigger track names are like Silverstone, Snetterton, all those tracks. There's one track in Wales, but the rest are all in England. And it's a lot of traveling for me. I'm like something like 4 hours to the border just to get to England, never mind whatever else after that. But my first weekend at Snetterton, I had no idea what I was going into. I didn't know any of the racers. I tried to like find some of them on Instagram to see if I could like see if they were like good or like whereabouts I would be. But I couldn't really I couldn't really figure out, you know. But in race 3, it was a reverse grid, and I was starting on pole position. Basically, they take either 6th, 7th, or 8th, and whoever like finishes on that position is on pole.
Okay.
So I finished 6th in race 2, so I was promoted to 1st, and out of a grid of like 23, I think. So I was quite nervous, you could probably tell. My first time ever starting on pole, very nervous. Sorry. And I actually led the majority of the race. And my mirror was folded in on the first lap, and I had front end damage. So eventually the pack behind me closed in, and I finished 5th, I think. Yeah, it was 5th. Which is a lot better than what we were expecting. I was hoping for a top 10, and I thought I was being very hopeful with that, but apparently not. So I'd say that's probably my most memorable moment. The championship actually started out really well, but the last 2 weekends, I've had a lot of contact with other drivers, and I was sitting 5th going into Anglesey, which was the meeting before the one last weekend, and 2 out of 3 races I ended up on the grass, and both races at Alton Park I had DNFs. So I've definitely lost a couple positions in the championship standings, but we just have to move forward and see. Like, I have the pace to be up there. I just need to try and figure out how I'm going to try and keep it on the track.
Yeah, I guess the knowledge that knowing that, when you've got the pace, you've got the pace. You don't need to almost worry. The basis is there. It's just making sure that the results reflect it, I guess. How are you going to make sure throughout the rest of the year that try and avoid the contact, avoid the incidents? What's your kind of game plan?
I'm honestly hoping on luck. All of the contact I've had, I haven't been able to avoid. It's been other people hitting my rear tire, and stuff like that. So it's not really anything that I can try and avoid. I just kind of have to hope and pray. But if I can get it to, like, if I can keep it on the track and not have any contact, like I should be like top 6 area.
Out of all the tracks that you've raced so far this year, do you have a favourite or one that, I guess maybe even one that surprised you, where you've liked it more than you expected to, or one you went into where you were really looking forward to it and you actually didn't enjoy it so much?
Well, I've actually been at Anglesey 2 years beforehand, so I really enjoy Anglesey. It's a really good track. Unfortunately, though, they cut out my favourite corner. So with the Scottish Fiestas, there was like an infield area, like a corkscrew almost. They cut like with the English Championship, they done the international circuit, I believe. So that misses it out. So I was very upset when I found that out. But honestly, I'd say Snetterton's one of my favourite. I like how just the track flows And I mean, I love Alton too. Like huge commitment into a lot of the corners, and that's just what I really love about it.
That's amazing. In terms of obviously between the Scottish Championship that you were in before and the national one now, obviously the tracks is, I imagine, one of the biggest differences. But are there any other kind of differences going into this year that surprised you? Anything you didn't expect? And in terms of like how competitive the grid is as well, was there anything that kind of didn't that met your expectations or didn't meet your expectations, if that makes sense?
Yeah, the Scottish Championship was a lot smaller of a grid. There was actually three championships in one. So there was the Cup Championship, the Challenge Championship, and the Newcomer. I was in the Newcomer and the Challenge. But the main differences this year is the tyres, which is what I've had to try and grasp quickly, which I have, thankfully. I actually prefer the tyres I'm running this year than what I've been to in Scotland. But like the hardest part this year is learning the tracks. The only track that I'd been to before was Anglesey, and like I said, I'd contact in two of the races, which caused me to go off the track. So that was hopefully that was we were hoping that would be my best round, but unfortunately, stuff happens. Um, but it's the English Championship's a lot more competitive. Like you really need to get stuck in to try and like move up, and it's everybody's a lot closer. Like a lot of the times are so much closer, and it's good racing, you know.
That's really cool. I was going to ask about in terms of learning the tracks, but then also just getting into the right mindset and, approaching a race weekend in the best kind of way you possibly can. Do you have any kind of preparations you do, rituals or routines that help you get into the zone when you're going into a race weekend? I guess particularly when you don't know the track yet.
Yeah, I like to watch a lot of onboards on my way there. Um, a lot of the time, my dad will drive our like sprinter van to that we stay in on race weekends. Um, and I'll watch some onboards, and um, I don't really have any rituals, I guess you'd say, before a race, but I do like on my neck stretches, you know. Um, I like to imagine my first lap. So when I'm like sitting in the car, ready to go out onto track to get zoned in, I'll close my visor, close my doors, windows, and everything, and just imagine my first lap, where I'm going to put my car. A lot of the time, it doesn't go to plan at all. I'll forget what I thought of, but it helps me just kind of think about different ways I could get past different corners, how I could take them. Maybe this might work, maybe that might work.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to ask about, I think I read, it might have been in the article you did that you mentioned at the start of the episode. I think you said that you feel you have to be twice as good as the boys just to compete. How have you kind of navigated? I don't know what the rest of the grid is like in terms of gender balance, but how have you kind of navigated the pressure? I know growing up, you said your brother and your dad inspired you. Were there any kind of female role models you were able to that you latch onto when you were younger to kind of help you navigate that pressure, or did it all kind of have to come from within?
Honestly, I don't really look up to any female like any females in motorsport. It's Lewis Hamilton I look up to because obviously like his financial struggles from when he was progressing is stuff that like me and my dad have also came across. Um, I don't really like I don't know how to explain it. It's I don't really feel much pressure being a girl racer. You know, in the end of the day, I'm a racer. I don't see gender. It's just like a helmet. You know, that's all I see.
Yeah.
My championship has got quite a few girls in it. There's two other girls, not including me. Um, but I think only one of them has completed all the rounds so far. I think one of them has missed two of the rounds. But I think she just kind of filters in when she can.
That's fair enough. That makes sense. And yeah, I think obviously Lewis's experience is very unique. And I think, you know, his story is one that I think has inspired so many people because as you said, he, you know, didn't come from the background where it all just kind of he just had it. He had to really work for it. And I know you've spoken, I've seen on your Instagram, and things like that, sponsorship and finding sponsorship for your own career. What's kind of been your experience with finding sponsorship? How have you kind of navigated that? Because I guess like I think sometimes people forget there's a whole kind of business side to motorsport that as a driver you have to be on board with, or there's no money to go racing.
Yeah, me and my dad rely very, very heavily on sponsors. Without them, I wouldn't be able to race like for the last good couple of years. It's so difficult to get sponsors, especially since COVID and everything. It's just taking a turn. Yeah, a lot of businesses are like really watching what they're like doing with their money wise. Like money's really tight with a lot of businesses, so it is definitely difficult. Thankfully, my sponsors that I have right now are really, really helping. Um, being Trust Ford and North 500 Motorhomes, um, NK Joinery and Kinghorn Joinery. Those are my sponsors, and they all really, really help. Um, I mean, anything helps in the end of the day, but it's so difficult to get sponsors.
I can imagine. As you've kind of grown up and obviously as you go through the categories, the money that's involved increases at the same time. Um, I know you obviously, as you said, you do kind of do it with your dad as well. Do you feel like there's any kind of major sacrifices either of you have had to make? Both like it doesn't like even have to be like financial, I guess. There's like so many things that come with it, like time, your weekends, like education wise. Is there anything that you kind of feel like has had to go, you know, kind of on the back burner, I guess, in order to make the racing a feasible reality?
Everything. Um, my dad quit his racing for me when he was racing BMWs. I left school to go start working because it would work better around my racing. Like I left school when I was just turned 16 because I was just missing far too much of it. I was like really struggling in all my classes. I was trying to do a lot of it online, but it's so difficult.
Yeah.
And then like again, like we've both given up so much time for it. My dad has given up pretty much everything. Like I could not thank him enough for everything that he's done for me. Like he drives me to the races, he drives me back, you know, he spannered for me for almost well, for all the years up until this year really. Um so obviously that's taken a toll on like his like muscle health, you know, like back issues and stuff. So there's so much I could continue rambling, but I'd be sat here for hours.
I guess because your dad has that understanding of motorsport, because obviously he's been there himself, I imagine that helps a lot. Like, what do you think? Like, I guess, what do you think he's taught you that from that first-hand perspective that you maybe would have had to take a while to learn if he hadn't been there? Is there anything that you think he's kind of passed on to you beyond genetically being very fast in a car that you think has kind of like, you know, helped you kind of learn some of those lessons faster, I guess, because you've got that direct experience that he can pass down?
Honestly, the phrase in slow, out fast has stuck with me for years. He still says it to this day. Um, like I used to like really struggle with trying to go into the corner too quick, and then obviously I'd get a slow exit. That's like the main bit that he has given me, but he's pretty much taught me everything I know at this point. Obviously, I mean, he's been out of it for a good couple of years, but he still has a really good understanding, and it is really, really good to have someone that understands everything. You know, like if I say, "Oh, this is going wrong with the car," okay, have you tried maybe trying this on the track? You know, just like giving me tips on what could potentially stop an issue, you know.
Yeah, I imagine that's so helpful. I think I've seen you say that the British Touring Car Championship is the dream for you. Is that true? And is that still how you feel now?
Yeah, that's how I felt for a good couple of years now.
What is it about the championship that makes it? I mean, I'm a huge fan of the championship myself, so I know the answer to this, but I want to hear it from your perspective. Like, what is it about the championship that makes it appeal to you and makes it the dream?
I love how close the racing is. I've only actually gone to see them racing 3 times at Knockhill. Once when I was like really young, and I think I slept through the entire race on the grass. But hey ho. Um, but I've always been really drawn to like saloon racing and like close wheel and everything, and like that's what I want to get to. It used to be F1 when I was like a lot younger. I think that's everybody's dream when they're young though. But then I just kind of realised, okay, I don't really have the finance for this. Let's see what the other options were, and that's when I found out about touring cars, and I was like, that is what I want to do. The first time I watched them on the TV, I was like, that's what I want to do.
If you kind of took, the financial side and everything, like, and threw that away, do you think F1 would still be the dream? Or now you've kind of seen touring cars, seen how close it is, exciting it is that it's more than just that now?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love a drive in F1. Do not get me like, oh my god. But I prefer closed wheel. I mean, I've never driven an open wheel car, but comparing it to karting, I definitely prefer the safety aspect as well as just the grip level. Because for me, like, especially with front wheel drives, back end starts to step out, put the throttle down, you're fine. You know, but if it's a rear wheel drive, there's a lot more thinking to do and everything. But it's like you just throttle it and you're fine.
In terms of obviously touring cars dream championship, in terms of if you could have a dream car in your garage, no, it could be a road car, it can be a racing car, you can pick anything. What car would you pick and why?
A Mark III Ford Escort RS Turbo.
You had the answer prepared.
Yeah. I love this car so much. So my dad actually owns one, right? It's in bits though. But it's always been my dream car. Like I've always seen it, and I just like he drove it for a while. I don't know how long, and he's obviously like he loved the car, and I don't really know what it is about it. I love how it looks. I love an Escort. I think my
Along the
dad
same
really influenced that as well, though. So
along the same sort of lines, is there a driver who you've never raced against, but someone who you'd love to race against, regardless of what car it's in, what track it is, a driver who, even if it was just the two of you on track, is there a driver who you'd love to race against, past or present as well, I guess?
I honestly don't know. I'd like to see what I compare to like someone in F1. Like how our driving styles compare. Like if there would be any opportunity for me even to try and keep up with them. I would like. I don't really have anyone specific. I don't know actually.
Put them in a Fiesta, see what happens. You're the
Exactly.
expert. You're the expert, so they're
Funny.
used
Anything
to
can happen.
I guess this is my final question before we wrap up, and I'll give you a chance to kind of plug your social media so everyone can come and check you out and everything. But kind of looking forward, obviously we're in July now, so we're kind of halfway through the year. By the end of 2025, what will success look like to you? Like when you look back on the season, what do you want to be looking back on? What will you be happy with? What will you I guess as the season as a whole, what do you want it to look like by the time that it's finished? It doesn't like, I guess, results wise, but it doesn't have to just be results as well.
Mhm. I'm wanting to get a top 5 in the championship. Coming into this year, it was a top 10. Now it's changed to a top 5. I would really like to get my first podium. Even better if I got well, not my first podium, but my first podium in this championship.
Yeah.
Would be even better if it was a win, but I'll take what I can get. Yeah, it's just like being up there, like constantly progressing. That's what I'm looking for. Like this year's kind of my learning year.
Mhm.
Learn like the drivers, everything that we've had to change from the Scottish Championship, the tracks, all that. That's pretty much what I'm doing this year. And then hopefully next year, if we do continue with the Fiestas, I should be pushing right up at the sharp end.
I guess what you said about sorry, I know I said that was my last question, but you said when you went into it you were looking at top 10 and now you're looking at top 5. What's it like to kind of, you go in with an expectation, you set something realistic. What does it feel like to kind of know that already you're pushing towards doing better than you dreamt of before it started?
It feels amazing. My team is extremely happy with me. My dad is also delighted. Um, I feel like I've like really proven myself to not only like everybody else but to me. Um, I guess I didn't know what I was going into. I didn't know any of the drivers, so we just kind of said top 10 would be overly happy with that.
Yeah.
And now it's like I've already exceeded that. Now it's the next one, and we're still in the same year.
Well, they should be very happy, as should you. So best of luck with the rest of the year. As I said, let us know your social media so I can plug in the comments below and then people can come and check you out and follow your journey.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. It is Sophie Kinghorn Racing on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Um, it might be Sophie Kinghorn Racing _83 or just something to do with Sophie Kinghorn Racing. It'll be there. It'll come up.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sophie. Please do, if you're listening, make sure to go and check that out in the description. Go and give Sophie a follow. The Down to the Tyre social media will be in the description as well. So please go and follow me on there. But yeah, thank you again to Sophie for her time this evening.
Thank you very much for having me.